All right, we are back with the Be Better podcast, episode 4, with a dear friend of mine, a mentor to me, and a good father figure in my life as well, Ryan Sledge. Man, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's good, brother. Hey, before we get started, I did want to ask you, so obviously I'm up here in St. Louis, and the weather's been really weird. Last week it was like 104, and then, this week has been kind of rainy and cold. Like, what really is the weather down there?
So, I'm on the East Coast around, Fort Lauderdale area. Of course, a hurricane came through, but it kind of stayed pretty much to the west of the Keys, but kind of hit somewhere around Fort Myers Beach, kind of where they got some pretty good gust of winds. And then obviously it went up and flooded areas of Tampa and Clearwater Beach and stuff like that. And first time that we've seen a hurricane actually hit Big Bend, and it's just so shallow up there. I mean, it's really shallow. So we knew that the storm surge was going to be 15 foot going in through there. And it actually had so much force, it carried all the way through Georgia and the Carolinas. And they actually experienced hurricane force winds and rain and stuff like that. So, and then went all the way through, went back into the Atlantic and took off again. So quite crazy, but it's been extra hot like this year and humid and stuff like that. But it's Florida.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure with the hot weather, we can touch base a little later about kind of what some of your interests are, that you can solve that problem for a lot of people. But I was always just curious, man, because I know you've been up here to St. Louis a couple times, and I feel like my little area here has the weirdest weather, right? And then I go to places like Florida, and I'm just like, hold on, it was 104 degrees. It rained for 2 hours. Now it's 71 degrees. It rained again, and now before the end of the night, it's going to be 95 again. So it's just, I don't know, man. You guys you're blessed and cursed to live by that beautiful ocean, those beaches, man. But that weather would just, at least in St. Louis, if it's either going to be 101 degrees all day with 100% humidity, or it's going to be freezing cold all day, and it's going to be freezing cold. You know what I mean? So there's a little consistency there in the bullshit, but I feel like down there, man, you guys are pretty much pendulum swinging back and forth on the weather all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely bipolar here. I mean, and it can be, we can have 4 seasons all pretty much in the same day. Not like it is in Tennessee where I'm from, but I mean, yeah, it's quite crazy. But the humidity, that no one ever gets used to, is the humidity.
Oh yeah. Yeah, brother, I agree. But here's the thing: you guys have humidity down there, but like at the cost of, you have a beach, you're next to an ocean, it's beautiful. We have humidity up here, and it's just trash. It's just like we're not getting we're suffering, but not getting any of the rewards. It's bullshit. It'd be like working out your whole life and still being fat. It wouldn't make any sense, But that's awesome, man. Well, for the people that don't know you, obviously I've known you for quite some time. I know you pretty well. So just give me the little, the 10,000-foot view on Ryan Sledge. Where he started, what was his upbringings, and kind of like to give me the path of progression of where you're going now.
Yeah, so like business has always been my passion, and pretty much, what drove me. I grew up in a family of law enforcement, and but I was doing baseball card shows at the age of 12, and 13 I actually was the promoter for a card show, and did pretty well with that, and just kept on, landscaping, grass cutting, promotional businesses, hiring expos, all kinds of things like that. Then it's kind of like, I even decided one day I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker. So I moved to Tampa, and I went through that phase for about a year and a half. And then I came back home to my daughter, which was at the time, I actually had my oldest daughter, had her when I was 17 years old, my senior year of high school. So I had to grow up overnight, which is actually the best thing that ever happened to me. But law enforcement was kind of the path that I loved and wanted to do, and it fulfilled me in a lot of ways. I've been through a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I still have got a lot of people I'm in contact with a lot of my old SWAT buddies, a lot of my old, patrol guys, just everybody everywhere. And it humbles me to see what's going on in this world today and what these guys are putting up with just to make a living. And so I was injured in an on-duty auto accident, and it actually had a spinal fusion and ended up pinching me out, which was another blessing. Took me a while to understand that, to kind of see that, but then it forced me to get, back into business. I was already in business. I actually didn't work police extra jobs where you see these guys all the time standing over manholes, directing traffic, and at football games and
secondary, right? That's what they call it.
Secondary employment, exactly. And fortunately, I had a business that I started where I had a lot of physical security and fraud that we would detect for used to be called Shop at Home Television, but they ended up, I think, getting acquired by QVC or somebody. But it was in Nashville, so that was a great run for me too. But that fueled me, and I just stepped right over into that after the accident. And since then, I'm still going and actually living my dream that I've always wanted to do as business, and still have the guys to hang out with and to keep up with and to scratch that itch just through a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially too, with you being in that category for 17 years, I mean, you definitely earned your stripes, right? You weren't like a 6 months on kind of guy and quit and did something else. Like, you earned your stripes through those 17 years. So I'm sure through those times, man, you probably have some crazy stories. I know you've told me a couple of nuts ones we won't get into, but, I'm sure you have a ton of them, and just the experience too. And what you said earlier kind of resonated with me. I've never been in law enforcement, but I have a lot of dear friends of mine who are in law enforcement, and none of these guys wake up every day trying to be Superman, right? These are just average day guys like me and you who, work hard during the day. They come home, want to have a beer, want to watch the game, and just chill out, right? And spend time with family. And I think a lot of the time, man, people just put this bad rap on cops often, right? And I've had my fair share of interactions with police, good and bad, whatever. But I mean, it's just like everything in the world, man. If you walk down the street and meet 100 people, you're going to run into a couple assholes. That's just the reality of it, right? But I would definitely say in this world, just as the same in the policing world, there's a lot more good than there is bad. It's just people highlight the one bad, So, but my point being, man, is like I feel like all these cops out there, they're just trying to, like you said, they're getting a paycheck, which in my opinion is very underwhelming for what they have to deal with. I mean, the paycheck, I think the average cop is paid probably like $65K. I mean, that's peanuts in comparison to what they have to do. I mean, I know you said you're talking about going to be a stockbroker, man. Those guys make $200K and they've never once had to risk their life at work. I mean, maybe they tripped going to the water cooler. I don't know. But, these cops out here that are literally getting shot at. I mean, in St. Louis, I know you were a cop down in Tennessee, so I know you know how it is in certain areas. But in St. Louis, man, like a couple of my buddies are city cops down there. And like if they get a call on a certain street, like they won't go, man. They can't. I mean, they just can't because it's an ambush. It's a trap, and if they do go and try to help, they're just victimized and they're just, pinpointed like the bad guys. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But if you don't go to those calls, maybe it was the one call that this person actually did need help, So it's like those guys can't win, dude. I have a lot of sympathy for them. And hopefully, I'm sure you can touch a lot of this, Ryan. But I think 4 or 5 years ago, the whole country was against cops completely, right? It was like it was a bad time to be a cop. I think we're kind of coming back around to being a little more understanding of officers. And, we had this 2 years of defund the police when Biden took over, essentially. And then people realized, like, that's the worst fucking idea you could ever do. And now, like, people are starting to have respect and, commonality for the police again. So my question, man, is, like, whenever you were in the force for those 17 years, did you have anything similar like that happen in the world where people was ripping on cops left and right?
I mean, yeah, it wasn't to the extent that it is now. I mean, there's things that you did that there's always that 1% of bad in every group. It's just the bigger the group, the bigger the 1%. But those guys wash themselves out. Other police officers don't want to be around them. They literally will get called. And I mean, I've had my share of that too. I'd get a call to go somewhere and they send me with someone who wasn't someone that I aligned with. And I'd be like, you can have them, I'll advise and I'll let you know if I need them. 9 times out of 10, I'd have somebody else and they'd be like, another car would be like, I'll go, I'm with him, I'll go with him. And that's right. That's how we handled that. But no, we didn't flat out throw that person under the bus. We were just like, look, we're choosing to be safe and to be able to go home every night. Because there was 3 things I was taught when I come on the police department. You never go hungry, and you never go home late, and you always go home to your family. And if you didn't get that together, then you're going to find yourself in one of those situations. So the defund thing, when it came out, that really hit me because that was part of the 1%ers, but it got so much media traction that it literally just diluted the facts that a lot of these people still did not want to defund the police. They were like, no, we need them. And I guess the karma portion of that, or some of those that did that, ended up calling the police because they had protesters at their house doing things to their yard, doing things to their house. They didn't feel safe. And now it's like, I need the police. Pick your poison. What do you want? And it's sad, but that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I watched a video the other day. They were talking about defund the police, and they said like most of the officers that, because when people defunded the police, right, and these basically municipalities cut the funding, some of these officers had to go without jobs. They were laid off, or they had to quit because they were getting not enough hours, whatever the deal was, right? And where would they go? They would work secondary at these politicians' house that literally passed litigation and passed laws to make their lives harder. So I was like, what the hell, man? You don't want these guys to be cops on duty, but you're okay with them protecting your house, or you're okay with them, walking you from your office or escorting you from your office to your house, the whole deal. So I found a lot of hypocrisy in it, man. And I always find too, if you see the areas that really hit defund the police, like there was that, I think it was called the Block in Washington, in Seattle. State. Yeah, Washington State. And, they defunded the police. And I think in like a 6 month span, there was like 18 murders, like 400 rapes, a bunch of assaults, a bunch of theft. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I don't think in this country we need martial law, right? We don't need, armed machine gun posts at every corner, or, Nazi Germany where every time you transfer streets, you got to show papers. I don't think it's anything like that. But I do think there needs to be law and order to a certain extent where people are incentivized to not commit crime. I mean, if you take that, the only thing that's separating us from, savagery essentially is the ramifications of your actions. And when you take those away and you take away the people that enforce them away, I mean, dude, it's just anarchy. It's a recipe for disaster. And I don't think people really understood that until this past, in my opinion, until this past like year or so, honestly.
Totally agree with you. Everything's theory. And, all these people were like, they have all this theory. Well, theory's great. In theory, most of that stuff doesn't work out that way. And then when it finally hits the fan, they're like, now what do we do? Well, you got to always change from theory to action, because action's the next thing, because you got to deal with what you thought was going to happen, didn't happen, and now you've exacerbated the situation. You've created more strife in the air, and now you got to send the police in to handle the problem. And then you don't want them there, and it's kind of like, well, why aren't the police coming in? They're not defending us. So mainstream medium, I think, has just crushed the majority of this kind of stuff, and then the activists that are pushing their own agendas is also the other side of it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100% on that one. But also too, like these cops, okay, great. Finally, they call in the police, right? They're like, hey, we actually need these guys, right? We call them in. The cops are so burnt out, they don't want to fucking work. They don't want to go and do that, man, because they've, 15 people in their department, in their small municipality, a staff of 25, 15 of them quit, and they're working, 12-hour days back to back to back, mandatory, right? I mean, and every interaction they have is shitty. It's not like they're just sitting in a parking lot on patrol. Like every interaction they have is hostile. It's aggressive, right? So finally, when the cops do come in, they're burnt out, they're beat up, they're underpaid, they're undervalued. I mean, I think my buddy told me the statistic in St. Louis was like for every one new officer, 5 are retiring or quitting.
Yeah.
So like, man, like it's crazy. You get a city like New York City, right, who has like 11 million people. They have on staff like 45,000 cops. Dude, if 5 of them retire for every one cop that comes back, there's just not enough time in the day. There's not enough people, man, to man those. I mean, New York is huge, right? There's just it's a recipe for disaster, right? I mean, it truly is. And I don't know. I personally, man, I've only been on this earth 27 times. I don't know everything. I like to think I do sometimes, but I know I don't. With you being in that category, with you being a little older than me, like, do you understand where that's going? And if you do, could you kind of give me your remedy if you could solve it?
So I can tell you that Nashville Police Department had 1,300 sworn officers back in the late 80s, early 90s. And today they have the same, thereabouts. You got a 6-month academy for these guys to go through. It's military based. Used to be a lot more strict than it is now. with the physical part of it, the mental part of it, and then the law part of it is pretty strenuous itself. But they're making exceptions for everything now. You had to have a 2-year degree before, and you did, then you didn't. Now you do, and then it's like, okay, well, we'll accept this, and we'll accept military, which is they should have been doing all along, except the military. And there's other things, but it's like you're never going to be able to compete and keep up with the way that the city's growing, the way all of these cities are growing, with the same police force, wanting them to do more stuff, but they're wanting them to do them in a certain way that a lot of it is unsafe. I think Nashville's police chief now, and I know him, is doing a great job of bringing the group back together. And it's when you don't have, everything is about the leadership. When you don't have great leadership, everything falls apart. And then what is it? You want to blame it on that person. I had a guy tell me one time the best story. He said, Ron, best way to run a company is you write 3 letters. You get hired from this company, they pay you $30 million a year. You come in, you write a letter. After the end of that first year, they come to you and say, yeah, things aren't so good. Kind of what's going on with this? And you open up that letter and you say, yeah, it's previous administration. Previous administration did this, did that. We're working on that. We'll work our way through it. We make some progress. Year 2 goes by, they come out like, yeah, our numbers, still aren't that great. You're up a little bit. What's going on? Well, it's the economy. So now all of a sudden we're going to blame the economy and we're going to fight that. And so then like, yeah, okay, you've made some progress here. Then year 3 comes and they say, what do? You write another letter. You're done. And that's the reality of this. People don't care. And until they care about their communities and their families and like mean it and want to make a difference, you got the same thing. They're passing the buck. Everybody wants to play the blame game and blame everybody else. And that's how these police departments are faced every day and how they're falling apart.
Yeah, I agree. And just for perspective, I know that I told you before, I have family outside of Nashville. So I go to Nashville, I don't know, once or twice a year, give or take. And, we always spend a night or two on Broadway. And I will tell you, I've been to other major cities. And the police down there in Nashville, man, they do, in my opinion, they do a very good job. I have never seen a crazy event at Broadway. And that's a madhouse. You know what I mean? There's 1,000 people every block. I've never seen anything crazy happen, though. But I've been downtown St. Louis and seen crazy shit. I've been on Beale Street in Memphis and seen crazy shit. I've been in Dallas, Texas and seen crazy shit. I mean, Panama City Beach, I've seen crazy stuff, right? But, man, those Nashville cops, man, I think their training, like you said, is probably just substantially better. And, I think, like you said, man, they're leading, the chief down there is leading from the front. So he's setting the precedence of excellence for everybody. Every interaction I've ever had with a Nashville cop has been super cordial, super professional. It's never been anything, aggressive or weird. And, the small events where I've seen them there were like, hey, this drunk guy bumped into this drunk guy, and they go at it for 5 seconds. The cops are always there in a heartbeat, and they're always separating the situation quickly. Whereas, man, like I said, in other cities that I know, dude, there could be a 50-person brawl happen on the beach in Panama City, and the cops don't even show up. I mean, not bashing those officers down there. I'm sure they're doing their best, but I just think the training and the leadership aspect is definitely where we're lacking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the officers, it's the leadership.
I believe that. And if I feel like this too, man. If I was an officer and I didn't feel supported, not only by my community, but by my leadership, right? Like, hey, I'd be scared to do my job. Because I know, hey, like if something happens and it's a controversial event, like, and I follow protocol, I know to save face that chief's going to throw me under the bus. I'm not even going to the call, man. I'm not going to go. And that's just such a weird thing.
A lot of police officers get into that field because they want to, quote, change the world. And when they come out, they figured out it's changed them and their families. The big thing about the police department is they also want the job security, and they want the health care, and they want the benefits, and they want to be able to put their kids in good schools and do the same thing that everybody else does. But when you go to work every day and you're more scared about getting shot, getting prosecuted, or getting sued than you are about what is actually the problem here, then the leadership has got to take that away. Because even at the top of the leadership, I mean, these guys still have to play the political game too. They're they're wearing two faces, and it's, there's very few of them that wear them well, but the ones that do, like Chief Drake, like he literally on the the Christian school shooting that happened, he literally ran an emergency, driving his own police car, which most chiefs have got a driver, to the scene and got there pretty much in time that he was going to suit up and go inside. Never have I ever heard that before. Not to say it's never happened, because I know there's other major good police chiefs out there and leaders and stuff like that, and some sheriffs across this country who stand up for their departments. But everything's leadership, and that's how I look at everything going forward in business today.
Yeah. And, one last thing I'll touch base on that. I wanted to transition to another part of what I wanted to kind of talk to you about is, when you see the footage between the Uvalde Sheriff's Department and the Nashville Department of, their police department, when those two different incidents of shootings, right? Man, I remember watching that the Nashville school shooting, like the body cam of the guy, and I was like, this is top notch. I was like, there's no doubt in my mind. They're confident. They're going in to neutralize a target. Everything was like, if I could draw a perfect picture scenario, man, I was terrified because it's a shitty situation, right? That's terrible. But like, man, they executed it the best that they could have. I mean, it was by the book, like out of a movie, perfect, right? And then you see the other one, Uvalde, right? Like, dudes pissing their pants in the hallway, scared, and the dude's wife's in there, and they can't even go save her. And, God bless those officers, right? It didn't start with them. It started with the poor leadership and the chief wanting to wait 52 minutes to go in there, and the lack of training. So, last thing I'll say about that, man, God bless all the good officers out there and the good chiefs that are doing a good job. God bless you guys. I hope you never change a thing. I hope it grows. And all the officers out there that aren't getting any support, I hope that changes for you, either in a different department, a different municipality, or, something changes in our government to give you that support. But, God bless our police officers for sure. And, man, I appreciate every minute that you served for us. And I'm sure you did a lot of good for the people of Nashville in 17 years. So,
yeah, it was a good ride. And I'm glad to say I was there and still somewhat attached to a big part of that group.
Absolutely. So let's transition then, right? So your superhero days were over, right? You retired saving the world. So what transitioned next?
Business, and I took a lot of police days of being at. I learned how even working in the jail. You got to learn how to talk to people. Then you got to learn how to react, even if it's mental illness or whatever, in a way that you're successful. And it's off the cuff, on your feet, right now, today, every day. So when I went into the business side of it, I basically used the same stuff and the same tactics for that, and it's worked out for me. It's been successful. It has gotten considerably harder, I'm going to say, in the last 6 to 8 years. A big dynamic change in the people that are coming up now, and I think a lot of it's got to do with the lack of education. I feel personally that the government sets the bar on this no kid left behind deal, and then they turn around and they drop the bar at 2:00 in the morning and act like, oh, well, they're passing now. No, you're killing our young kids, and you're feeding their minds full of bad stuff, and they don't know how to react to it. Therefore, you'll hear a bunch of older heads like, this generation is not having any work ethic and stuff like that, which I totally disagree with, because again, it's back to the 1%ers. I feel like there is a bigger quality of this generation's coming up, like you and several others that I know, that are making massive impacts, that are really making statements, and they're standing for what's right, and they're saying, no, we're not going to allow this to happen to our generation and to our kids' generation. But mainstream media is putting it out there like, no, this is it, we're doomed, and it's just because they've got the audience, and they do it every day in, day out, 24/7, and it just gets smothered in negativity. And that's why, when you told me that you were doing the Be Better podcast, I thought, yeah, that's the whole thing. Be better. And we all have it. We just all got to do it. And it's not hard. It's already in us, but we can't make excuses. There's two things in this world you can do. You can make money or you can make excuses, but you can't do both.
I love that, brother. And you told me that over a year ago. I remember that's one of the first real heavy hitter things that you said that I've actually listened to, and I agree with you. I mean, and I think as far as the media goes, man, I think like by design, that's their agenda, right? Not trying to sound, I say this every fucking podcast, not trying to sound conspiratorial, but I think the writing's on the wall in a lot of these situations. It's a lot easier for the media to push a doom and gloom headline than, hey, 15 local college kids accepted into Harvard, right? Like, why would they post a story about that? Why? Nobody's going to read it because nobody gives a shit. But if they said, hey, 15 kids, died last week of a heroin overdose. Yeah, man, that's the story they're going to boast, right? Which is rightfully important in that regard. Not trying to downplay the epidemic of opioid crisis, but like you said, man, like the negativity there is broadcasted. And you said something very interesting about people. I appreciate you using me as an example, but people like me trying to make the place a little better. I don't necessarily think it's a generational thing. You know what I mean? Because I think there's those 1%ers in every generation. Like my mom's generation, there's pieces of shit. My grandpa's generation, there's pieces of shit. I think it's just having the understanding and background of like morally what's right and what's wrong, right? Like for me, like I'm one of those people where I always try. I heard this quote years ago, and it's burned in my brain. Is integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking, right? Yeah. So like even when I'm alone, and let's say I'm hunting, right? I'm in a tree stand in the middle of nowhere, right? And I see a piece of trash on the ground. I could let it sit there, man. I could, but like, dude, it takes fucking half a second for me to go and pick it up and throw it away. So like, it's about doing the right things when nobody's looking. It's about doing the right things all the time, right? And that's where I think a lot of people miss out, man. They take the easy roads, and then things fuck up, and then they make excuses, right? Yeah. They take these slightly adjusted paths, and you mentioned the No Child Left Behind grant. That was really big when I grew up, right? So I grew up in the school in the inner city. Probably like 96, 97% African American. And some of these kids I went to school with, man, some of these African American kids and other minority kids, but they were the majority in the school. Dude, they're geniuses. They're super geniuses, right? And then you had somebody like me who like struggled a lot growing up with education. I was always a B and C student. And then in high school, I was more of an A, B student. I just kind of figured it out, but some of these kids that I went to school with, man, they were geniuses. And then the other kids, you say like 10% of them weren't, right? They just didn't get it for whatever reason. Maybe at home stuff. Maybe they just weren't being taught right. Maybe they had a learning disability that wasn't, diagnosed at the time. I don't know. But they would still get the passing grade. They would still get the pat on the back. Like, hey, 90% of your class scored an 80 on this test and you got a 15, so we're just going to bump you up to a 70, right? And that's great at the time. Like you said earlier, it's great in theory, right? But then you get an adult generation of people my age, I'd say 19 to 27, which is my bracket, of kids who don't fucking know shit, and they've been handed everything, and they can't handle. Like, I can't tell you how many people that are 27 years old that I know personally that cannot schedule their own doctor's appointment. They need their mom and dad to schedule their own doctor's appointment. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean, man? Like, they don't know how to schedule a car appointment if they need their oil change or something like that. They don't know how to do anything. I'm like, guys, like, this is a problem. Like, do you not see the problem? Like, if you're 27 years old and you can't schedule your fucking doctor's appointment, watch your mom and dad do it one time and then do it on your own forever. That's the action, right? Like, that's just 1% action that'll make you better. And people need to have that initiative to do that. But I'm just thinking fundamentally, not to ramble too much here because I'm passionate about this subject, but I'm just thinking fundamentally, like, when do you think that was really implemented into our system to just make fucking people weak?
Yeah, like, it was a buzzword initially. No Child Left Behind, and everybody got behind that term, and it flopped. It flopped because there's no leadership to see it through. They come up with all these great ideas, and they kind of half-ass assign it to somebody, but not someone that you're going to be able to say, okay, this is how you're going to do this. And we're going to reevaluate it every 15 days of the first 6 months to make sure that we're on track. And then we'll every 30 days after that. There's no system. And without systems, processes fail. The life of being able to put processes in place, put them into the systems and allow the systems to manage the people and you manage the processes. If they could get that stuff together, you've got a well-built train, and it's going straight down the track, and you don't have to worry about it derailing. And there's just so many people out there who want the titles, they want the egos,
They want the money.
and they want the money, and they want it now. They don't want it next week. They want it today, and then there's no patience in it, and it's a never ending cycle. And then when you throw the media in it, it's kind of like, okay, which way do we want this to work? Which way do we want to run this to where it goes to our agenda? It helps our viewers, so we can get, because all they care about is ratings. At the end of the day, they don't care about that there was 47 kids killed, or that 200 people graduated out of 201. They don't care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, why would they?
So it's all about ratings.
I think you're right, and I think that just goes back to maybe what I said earlier about the morality of things. As Americans, obviously I'm a very patriotic person. I don't know if you could tell, but I think we're blessed and cursed to live in the greatest country that's ever existed. Yeah. I think we're blessed because of the security. I think our country and government has done a lot of things right, in my opinion, but they've also done a lot of things wrong. And I think where our society dies is when we act like everything's perfect, right? We can't admit that things are fucked up and need to be changed, right?
Right.
But I also, on the flip side of that, this might sound a little contradictory, but Americans are hypocrites, man. Americans are hypocrites, and we are the most instant gratification society ever. We want everything right then, right now. That's why people will leave their wife of 20 years to fuck a bitch at a bar. That's why people will, spend time with their friends at somewhere else instead of spending time with their family, right? I mean, it's just, our instant gratification meter needs to be fixed. And I think that goes back to having the basic moralities to just do what's right, and I think that's what the media kind of plays off of, right? They use these headlines to push these doom and gloom for the ratings because they want that instant gratification of like a spot-on headline. But if they, like you said, man, they don't give a fuck about the deal. They'll write the story. I can't tell you how many people I know that have been on the news. Like a neighbor of mine, her and her son were on the news recently about something good, actually. It was kind of surprising they did a story on. It had a positive message behind it. It was like anti-bullying. They said the reporter they met with was very nice, came out to their house, shot at everything. Dude, we watched the news, like the news clippings of it. They spun it completely 180 and made them look like terrible people and missed the message completely. And we're basically talking about teenage kids suicidal over bullying, which was not the case. Like, it's just amazing the gymnastics that they will go through to spin a story, to push an agenda for the ratings, to make things just fucked up, man. And it's embarrassing. So that's why we're blessed and cursed, man. We're blessed and cursed to live in the greatest country on earth. I hands down believe that to the day I die. Toby Keith's my father. I always say that as a joke all the time. But, on the flip side, man, like, we're cursed because we're spoiled fucking rotten. We are spoiled rotten. And it's embarrassing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you're not going to fix it on a small scale. And, it's something that you can get some people on board with it this week, and then 2 weeks from now, nobody's talking about it anymore. And, we're on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So, I obviously don't have the answer for it. I wouldn't run for public office for numerous reasons. But, there's plenty of good answers out there, but there's no one who can take on mainstream media to make it work, because the agenda is going to get spun how it's going to work better for them, so they can get the things to, everybody wants to be the best. Fox is the best. CNBC is the best. ABC, NBC. It's all about who's the best, and who was the best yesterday. It's like, okay, we're going to do this tomorrow, so we can be the best today, and then we're going to go on. And they don't care who gets killed. Who goes through travesties from it, who gets just, suicide from it. There's all kinds of stuff. And
they treat us like garbage, man. They treat the people like garbage, and they treat us like prostitutes. They use us for a time, and they throw us to the curb. And there was one political candidate that tried to go get some mainstream media. He did pretty well for 4 years, but now you can see what he's going through now. So I mean, it's just once again, don't care how people lean one way or the other. I'm a libertarian, so I don't give a shit who runs this place as long as they're not, mentally ill or crazy or stupid. I mean, if they have a decent head on their shoulders and they make sense, they will get my support. I mean, I've always believed firmly in politics in this world, and in this country, I should say, where if we're all on the same plane and I don't like the pilot, I'm not hoping the plane crashes.
Nope.
I'm like, hey, I hope this guy gets us here safely. I might not like his shirt. I might not like what he stands for, but I hope he doesn't crash the plane into the mountain. And that's the problem. So with the media, they're trying to divide the aisle. Literally, if you look at the United States as a plane, you got the right side of the plane, left side of the plane, president and the cabinet up there, and all the other people of Congress and all that are at the helm. And the media is the stewardess in the aisle trying to divide us completely, right? Like they're trying to just separate us completely, make people tribe against each other, right? You're either in this camp or you're in that camp, and that doesn't do anybody any good, man. It doesn't do anybody any good. So I for the longest time, it was in my mind, it was always right versus left, right? For the longest time, it was always right versus left. Now I think of the last couple of years, man, it's really like us versus them. It's establishment versus non-establishment people. It's the people like me and you that are on the forefront of this country's ground floor, if you will, right? Making impacts locally, trying to do the right thing, versus people who are trying to control everything and do everything the wrong way. And I think the sooner people realize that, the better off we're going to be. And for the record, me saying that was pretty ballsy because I know we're going to post it to social media. I am not suicidal. So if you find me with 2 bullets in the back of my head with a shotgun on my stomach, I did not kill myself. I was murdered. So
exactly.
Crazy. Yeah, man, it's nuts. But anyway, sorry to everybody who hears this. That was kind of funny, but we had to go down the rabbit hole for a second, but I'm sure we'll pop back up in a little bit. So transitioning over to business. Obviously, I know you're a business magnet, right? Like you're dominant in that market. Your businesses do very well. How does somebody, so you were probably what, like in your mid-20s when you started, or maybe probably early 30s when you ventured out to business?
I already had, I had businesses growing up. Like I was in high school. I was cutting 80 yards a week every 7 to 10 days. I've always been, doing something with business. Business is my passion. But since then, I've had other companies. Like I said, I had a security company, and we also had a division for fraud that we took care of a lot of fraud. Later on, I've gotten into bank fraud, and I had a business that we did a lot of teaching. We did a lot of work with banks, teaching them how. When debit card fraud became a big thing, that was a big push. We did a whole lot with that across the country. Robbery training, hostile work environment, violence in the workplace, drugs in the workplace, anything that had to do with trying to make the banking system better for the people who were there day in and day out. And I did that for quite a while. I got into the AC and plumbing business back in 2004 and in Nashville, and did that for quite a while. Decided that I wanted to move down here, and that's what I do down here is AC and plumbing. I've got another company that's north of Nashville to where we are an appliance business, and I've been in a little bit of everything, but probably the biggest thing that I've learned is that systems are everything. Being able to systematize something, because I've had somebody work for me before, and we went from 20 to 38 employees, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm seeing the wheels start to wobble, and so I had to pull the reins back on that. And today we've got like 20, and we're running more efficient than we ever have. And too many people want to throw a human at a problem. Well, throw a system at a problem and watch it fix, and how quick it gets fixed. You just got to do it. You can't make excuses, and you got to own it at the end of the day. And it's easy for me to own, anything that goes on with my company. It stops with me. And I'll give the farm away to make something right. That's it. And that's what we do. There's a whole lot of competitors out there, and I don't like the word competitor because I don't want to compete with anybody. I want to be so good that we dominate. And there's plenty of business out there for everybody,
right?
But there's so much bad business out there, and what I mean by that is bad craftsmanship and workmanship. And these people or having people come into their homes to change a water heater or change the AC unit or something like that. And then they're finding out this wasn't done right, that wasn't done right. Now they're going to a warranty situation on a brand new water heater or an AC unit, and then we're finding the problems. And it's because everybody is stressed and they're trying to save $1 and it costs. And I mean, I do the same thing. I'm guilty of that. And we find somebody we think is, everything sounds good, it looks good, oh, they'll be fine. We'll save $500 on this and everything will work just fine. And then it's a problem. That creates, hostility between a new company coming out with the customer because they've had this bad experience. And it's just a circle. And, what I want to do, what we do here at Dr. Finn AC and Plumbing is literally, what's the problem? Because we're going to resolve it, and we're going to resolve it fast, and we're going to make sure that we're staying behind it. And when you need us to come back for another issue, you're going to remember how we handled that situation, and we're going to handle it the same. And we couldn't do it if it was for systems. The system that we have now is 1,000% better than the one I had when I was in Nashville, and it shows because I've got less employees doing more. And I've got the morale is great, and people want to work, and then other people want to come work for you. But you've got to come up with, this is how we do it. We install a toilet this way, we install an AC unit this way, a water heater that way, a faucet this way. Because if you go out and you tell 5 AC guys to go do an install and 5 plumbers to go do an install, you're going to get 10 different installs.
Yeah.
So people say, well, I don't really care as long as the water flows and the toilet's flush, I'm good. Or you're good till it's not good. And we don't know what we don't know until we know. So that's the problem.
I agree with you. And I mean, I'm looking at this from like a higher view than that even. If you went to a doctor, right, and need a brain surgery, right? Let's say you had 5 neurosurgeons in the room. I guarantee you all of those neurosurgeons are going to do the surgery the same way. Why? Because it's proven to work. It's the correct way to do it. And I guarantee you all those guys are going to do it the same way. I think in the blue collar industries, and not just AC plumbing, but I think in all of them, right? There's a lot of great companies out there like Dr. Finn AC and Plumbing that knows what they're doing. They actually give a shit about each individual client. They'll come through and do the job correctly the first time so you don't have to come back, right? And then you got the Chucks in a truck that likes to come out there. Oh, hey, your sink was messed up. I just replaced this, replaced that. Cool, it works for 24 hours, and the next day your P-trap fell off, and you don't know, and now you have 2 gallons of water a minute coming down your fucking shit, right? So I'm a victim of that personally. I had a plumber come out when I bought this house from Roto-Rooter guy. Okay, Roto-Rooter. Do you have? Are they down there?
Oh yeah, they're here.
Okay, I knew they were a massive company, right? But
franchise.
So I had a Roto-Rooter guy come out, and I thought, hey, national company, franchises. There's got to be standards there, right? Because people have to play by franchise rules and, all this good stuff and policy, procedure guidelines, all that stuff. And so the guy came out and my sink wasn't working properly and my toilet was also not drained. So guy charged me like $450, come over here and fix the problem. What did he do? He put my P-trap on backwards on my sink. So the next day I turned the sink on. He used it there. It worked fine. Next time I went to brush my teeth, P-trap was done. I heard running water underneath my sink. I was like, oh my God, this is a big deal. This is terrible. Second thing is my toilet, he did something, I can't remember exactly what he did, but he did something with the wax ring, right? And apparently fixed it or replaced it, whatever. And so anytime I flushed the toilet, everything was supposed to be okay. Well, it wasn't. There was a massive amount of water. Now, I had a second company come out and take care of the plumbing side for me, one that was a little more reputable, right? And these guys actually did things by the book. And now I have used them for multiple other situations, and they've always done right. And now they will get my business forever. If I ever have an issue with the plumbing side, there's no doubt in my mind. I know who I'm going to call, right?
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people out there are just in it for the quick paycheck, right? Remember what I said earlier about the instant gratification. They want the money right now, and hey, if shit breaks down in 2 weeks, hey, call me, and then I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
But instead of kicking the can down the road and prolonging these issues, man, just having the procedure and the policy or the process in the system, like you said, to do things right the first time. Not only are you creating a better experience for the customer or the client, right, whatever, but you're also like preventing yourself more work down the line. You're making yourself more money in the long run. I once again, maybe it goes back to what I said earlier about morals and ethics, If people just lack those, I feel like they lack them in every category, not just business, not just personal life, but all of them. And, I'm very thankful that you guys are down there actually doing people right. Especially in Florida, man, I'll tell you, if I lived on the beach and it was 104 outside, my AC failed, I called this guy to come over and he said he fixed it, still charged me a premium, but didn't fix it. Oh man, he probably wouldn't be walking after that. I'd be furious. And then Ryan, I actually wish that, I don't know if you track this in your CRM, but I would love to actually know the statistic of how many jobs you guys get a week of fixing somebody else's bullshit. I would assume it's quite a bit. I would assume it's probably a good amount, to be honest.
I actually could tell you that. Last week alone, it was 36%. And I didn't know you were going to ask that question. I don't know what it is this week, but last week alone was 36%. And I do know that I heard of another 2 today, and it's an everyday thing. But even going back to Roto-Rooter is a reputable company. It's a reputable franchise, and they've got systems in place and everything. But they literally do so much marketing, and people know who they are. Rescue Rooter, this, that, and the other. They do a lot more than just drain cleaning. But we all have the same pool of talent to choose from. And I went and got some blood work done the other day. And I always have some sort of quick conversation with whoever it's going to be taking my blood. How's your day going today, whatever. Because she's got a needle she's about to stick me, and I'll tell you tomorrow if I got a big bruise or if she had to do it 2 or 3 times. And you don't know. I mean, they do this stuff day in and day out. It's like making hamburgers. And it's, drain cleaning is the same way. But you don't know if this person, right before they got to your home, what just happened to them, what phone call they got, what text message they got, what news that they just learned, what's going on at home, this, that, and the other. Same with the police officer, same exact thing. And then you are, you're representing the company that you're working for, and now you're going into these people's home. And that's where, in our case, the company name would get, the bad rap for it. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough. You've got to be, you definitely got to be in your business enough to know what's going on to where you're on it when things happen, so you can deal with it and handle them accordingly, or you're just another company. And the only way companies now can really make money is you have to do what other companies don't want to do. And
whatever it takes, right?
And if you're going to complain about every customer that you get, then you're in the wrong field.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
I see that for sure. And I'm sure a lot of companies, during COVID as well, man, I feel like every company out there was just backed up, right? Because people were spending more time at home. So they were like, oh shit, hey, now we have money and we're not doing anything. We can be home. Let's get this done. Let's get this changed out. Let's get this, cleaned up, whatever, right? So I feel like because people in business wise, they had such a long backlog of like work, like, hey man, listen, we're booked out for 5 weeks. We can't even get to you, right? I feel like that made business owners as well kind of in that mode where like, hey, we're only going to work with people who we want to work with. And I think that's good for the COVID section of time, but that's not going to be forever, right? Like that's not going to be a pond that you can always fish out of. It's going to dry up eventually. Yeah. And I think what you said is true, man. Like you got to do whatever it takes. You got to do the jobs that people won't do, and that's how you get around. And then what you do from there, man, is like, I know your business pretty well, right? We've talked about it quite a bit. So every time that a company like yours, that if somebody is, I was in the marketing world for a long time, that I've said this to every guy and gal that I've ever worked with in a blue collar industry that are going into somebody's house. Every time you're in there, you should be planting a seed for a customer for life. I mean, it's that easy, man. You do it right the first time. I mean, because there's our house. I mean, you own a home. I own a home as well. So, man, things go wrong in houses all the time. Mm-hmm. It just happens, right? It's just the wear and tear, right? So, but if I know a guy like, hey, in 3 years from now, maybe this goes wrong. I already know somebody. I've already built that relationship. I trust them. They already did right by me the first time. It's a no-brainer for me to call back. So now you've guaranteed yourself future sales. So in 3 years from now, on September of 2026, if business is slow for Dr. Finn, I know, and I'm confident, I can say this about your business, I'm confident that you guys are going to have a bunch of repeat customers that you guys serviced 3 years ago. Maybe you changed out a coil, right, or something small. And now they need a whole unit replaced. Who are they going to call? They're going to call you guys. They're not going to call, Chuck's AC down the road, right? I mean, it's just setting that tone, having those systems in places to do things right the first time. Uh-oh. Guys, I think we lost Ryan. Give me 1 second. Sorry, brother. I think I lost you there for a second.
Just for a second. I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I can see you too. It sounds like you clicked an X where you weren't supposed to click one.
Right.
That happens to me sometimes, no worries. But yeah, so that was kind of my mindset, man, is that, doing things right the first time. I think what you said is huge, having systems in places to kind of ensure that success. Now, let me ask you this. You guys have created some awesome systems for the business. Do you think it's possible for people to create systems personally that would kind of increase their likelihood of success in different situations?
1,000%. Absolutely. And it starts with when your eyes open in the morning. You need some sort of routine that you can do that can prepare yourself mentally and physically for the day that you don't know what's coming at you yet. You don't know if it's going to be an amazing, awesome day, or if it's going to be a day to where someone's passed away that's really close to you, or a tragedy or anything. Like, you don't know. So if you can start your day to where I'm getting up and I've got some me time, and that's the hardest thing for me to do, but just to take 30 minutes and just to think about, okay, where am I? What am I thankful for? How are things going? Is there anybody that I need to reach out to do today that's been on my mind for the last week that I haven't thought about? And the last thing I want to do is find out that I didn't reach out to that person and then something happened to them or a family member the following week because I was too busy to take a couple minutes just to send a text or say anything. And then from there, how do you set your day? How do you go? You have to have some sort of accountability within yourself. There's, external accountability is great, and you can find that through different ways, but you have to be accepting of it and not, you can listen to it, but are you hearing it? And, but you can do this, the same thing, how you handle your kids, how you handle your family, how you handle the dogs, or the cats or whatever that you may have. And, when you're driving to work, somebody's going to pull over in front of you and, are you going to let them steal your joy and you're going to, honk at them and flick them off and race up against them and whatever? You might want to have a gun because they probably going to have one,
especially in our areas.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that? And, you want to be in the good side of the 1%ers that we can get this thing up and say, no, we're 25%ers because we're taking it back and we're able to do this because we're going to be better. And, everything that we do, every single thing that we do every day. And I tell them all day long, we don't wait. We never wait. We always create. I don't ever want someone to tell me, hey, what's going on with this, going on with that. I'm waiting for. No. You create it. If you're going to get doctor's results, you call the doctor and say, hey, what time do you expect the results to be on? They usually come in around 2:00. Great. I'll call back then. So at 2:00, I'm going to call and say, have you got anything? No, they're not in yet. We'll give you a call when they come in. Okay, that's fine. But you can bet at 3:00, I'm calling you back. Right. Otherwise, I'm going to be through Monday through Friday. And Friday, I'm going to be like, yeah, we think we got it around here some way. In business, what happens is you lose business. Did you call Miss Jones to let her know that we were going to go? Well, no, she was supposed to call us. No, you call her. Because if not, ABC company is going to happen to show up in her mailbox or on TV or somewhere else, and she's going to call them, and then they're going to be out there. Next thing you know, you lost an opportunity. And you better cherish every opportunity that you get. And if you do that with friends, because I'm a firm believer, everybody comes into your life for a reason or a season. And either way, it's up to me on my side of it, how I'm going to react, how I'm going to grow with that person or not with that person, but what am I going to learn from that person? Or what am I going to learn about myself and how I handled that situation? So, yeah, I'm a huge believer that you can put systems in place. And some of it's just simple boundaries. And but outside of that, you absolutely can. You put a system in place to handle. This is how I'm handling all these different situations in my life, and we need more of that.
I think so too. And I think it's not even just people of younger generations or your generation. I think it's everybody. I don't know the real statistic here. I don't even know if it's possible to know, but I would be confident in saying a majority of people out there in the world, they live every day without a system. And they just kind of go by the seat of their pants and they wing every day. Now, that works out well for some people, right? Some people that are very spontaneous and might go hit the lottery that day, but a majority of us aren't that lucky. So, you never see a professional football team. I know me and you are both Dolphins fans, so go Fins, but you'll never see any professional sports team go into a game without a plan. There's always a plan of attack. There's always a battle plan. There's always, a playbook that they go by, right? Same in war, right? I mean, that's pretty extreme, but even war, man, like not a group of soldiers just don't walk onto a battlefield and hope for the best. There's a calculated plan behind it. And I feel like a lot of people every day, I firmly am a believer of consistency in life. As humans, I think we thrive on consistency, right?
Yeah.
We do very well in sessions of rules and guidelines and consistencies. And when you lack the consistency and you're kind of just a lot of gray area everywhere, you're uncertainty about a lot of things, but you're also having uncertainties like come into your life, right? Yeah. And you're never able to prepare or expect or have a game plan for when things happen. So I think a majority of people out there, they go by the seat of their pants. They don't have a system in place. They wake up, one day they wake up at 6 a.m., one day they wake up at 10, one day they wake up at 2 p.m., right? There's no consistency there. Oh, I'm going to hit the gym Monday, but then I don't go for 2 weeks. And then I'm going to go Tuesday, then I don't go for another 3 weeks. I eat like shit. One day I had McDonald's. Next day I'm really healthy. Next day I had Jimmy John's, right? Like, without these consistent patterns, how can you expect anything but success? The people that are out there that are having success are the people that are putting in the work day in and day out, that live by that code and credence, that have those systems in place where they wake up at 5 a.m. every day. They hit the gym from 8 to 9. And then from 9:30 to whenever, 5 o'clock, they're working, right? They're in that rhythm, that workflow state, that consistency state. And I think it all starts with just setting up a system. I don't think that there's one system that is good for everybody. I don't think that's the way. I think all of us are unique.
Right.
My God, man, I don't give a fuck if you're working third shift, first shift, second shift. If you don't have a job, if you do have a job, if you're retired, if you're new to the workforce, if you're in college, in high school, whatever it is, man, build yourself a system and stick to it, please. That's all I can recommend and suggest, because I've made that changes in my life, and it's worked out for the better. I feel better. I'm a healthier person. I get things more done. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Knowing being prepared. I shouldn't say knowing, but being able to have some sort of preparedness for whatever life throws at you that day, you're much better off than just kind of winging it. I will promise you that.
Yeah. No. It's not hard to create a game plan. It's hard to execute it. And if you're not executing your game plan every day, whatever your game plan is, now all you need to do is run the plays. And if you're not doing that, then why'd you ever create a game plan? And people get caught up in themselves about, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then they try to do too much. And then they forget what the most important thing was that they need to do. And it starts with yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, that's why on an airplane they tell you, put your mask on before you put it over your kid's mouth. So everybody's got a chance here.
Yeah, if the parent dies, the kid's going to die right behind him. So
yeah, if I can't help myself, then I can't help you. And it's kind of funny because I tell my wife sometimes, I'm like, honey, I can't save you from yourself. And the statement is real. And then she laughs about it. She's like, that's a very true statement. But it's what you invest in. And a lot of people don't understand how to invest into themselves. I'm telling you, I've got the most expensive education anybody in the United States of America. And it has been nothing but trial and error. And I've got a college degree, and that's done nothing for me other than I've got the paper. But you just got to get out there and do it. You got to find a way to be the best version of yourself so your family can benefit from that.
Yeah, and I think it all starts at that 1%, right? Like, just do something 1% differently in the positive direction, because it's like compound interest, right? I mean, I hope everybody out there knows about investments. If not, reach out to me. I have a great financial guy that I'm going to have on the podcast later date. He takes care of me. He's educated a lot with me. But if you don't know what compound interest is, it's the same concept in this aspect of life, where you do things 1% better for a whole year. they're 365, maybe 366, right, percent better by the end of the year. I mean, it's those small incremental changes that equate to a larger volume of success. And once again, go back to my point earlier. I think people are so caught up with the instant gratification. Like, dude, if you're 500 pounds and you go to the gym for fucking 2 days, you're not going to have abs and a six pack, man. It's just not going to happen. It's you going for 3 or 4 years consistently, kicking ass and dominating and working out and being healthy and eating right. That's how you get to those, those guys that are looking like Ronnie Coleman out there, right? So it's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in life. It's the same thing with your spiritual health. It's the same thing with your mental health. I mean, it's across the board. If people applied that concept to their life, I think, one, we'd be better off as a nation. Two, you'd be better off. Fuck everybody else. You'd be better off as an individual. Yeah. Take care of yourself first, like you said. You'd be better off as an individual. You'd be more confident. You'd be happier. You'd be content with the good things, but still striving for the greater things, right? So, yeah, I think that's just where, I know we're kind of going all over the board here, man, but I think there's a lot of fundamental issues in this country that root from these things that could solve some, maybe just a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Patience, execution, and consistency. You got to have all three. You can't have one without the other two.
Yeah. I mean, I fish a lot. I know you fish too, man. And like, how many times have we been out there, spend 6 hours on the water and not catch a damn thing?
Yeah, exactly.
It happens, and there'll be other days where I go out there and I'm ripping lips in 5 minutes, Yeah. But I mean, I would never have those ripping lips in 5 minutes opportunities if I didn't go out there and sit for 6 hours the day before and get nothing. I mean, it's all about the consistency, about just being out there and doing the things that need to be done to get the result.
Right.
So I know we're getting close on time. I know it's getting late over there on the East Coast. So I'll run through this with you. One last thing, if you could give some advice to younger people, because I'm assuming that's primarily who is going to watch this, but even people that are older who could maybe more general advice. If you could give some advice to people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, starting a business, things like that, because me and you both agree, there's only 2 ways to get wealthy in this world. 1, entrepreneurship, owning your own business, being your own boss and being dominant in that marketplace. 2, real estate. That's a more fun one, but we can talk about that later. But if you could give some advice to people who want to get started in either of those, if you had to go back and do it at this playing field, how would you do it, and what advice would you give to those people?
First thing I'd do is look at how many different irons do I have in a fire, and which ones of those are important to me. And the ones that were not, I would pull those out, and I'd say, okay, I'm pretty good at this, family, I'm good at that, working out, eating healthy. I'd find the things that I was good at, and I would acknowledge that. The next thing I would do is I'd say, okay, I've got to figure out this thing called investing in myself. I've invested in when have I invested in myself? Well, I did it with eating right. I did it with exercising correctly. Okay, so how did I do that? Did I make a plan? Yes, I did. Did I execute on that plan? Yes, I did. Did I do that plan day after day after day with the consistency and the intensity that I needed to be successful? And if I could answer those questions to basically be yes, now I'm going to say, okay, if I want to go into business, I got to find what fuels me, like what really gets me motivated, what do I get excited about, and what I want to do. And I need to put some blinders on. I need to listen to things. I need to read things. I need to make notes and find a way to get in with a system and start. You got to start. If you don't start, it's just a game plan on the wall, and that's it. You've got to execute on that game plan. You've got to get out there and do it. And once you start, now you're going to start seeing things, and you may find out quickly that this isn't for you. But what did you learn from that? It's going to be like, okay, the next time I do this, I'm going to take this item over here, and I'm going to be able to streamline and do this over here faster. And before you know it, I'm going to be successful. It's not about being, the best company. It's about being the best known company. And you can always grow from that and scale from that. People ask me all the time, how do you scale a business? I said, well, you build a business to sell. And they said, but that's not scaling. I said, no, if you build a business to sell, you already scaled, or you're not in a situation to where someone you would be attracted to sell. So you have to really think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and knowing every day, am I checking the boxes? Do I have the discipline to check the boxes that I said I was going to do? And now can I measure the successes and the things that I've done to where I can say this worked, that didn't. Let's pull these off and let's move 3 more up here that's going to work with the 2 things that we checked off. Now we're growing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I think half the battle is like, hey, if you fail, you fail. But start. But fucking start.
Get up.
And start now. The only better time than yesterday is right now, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And I feel like a lot of people out there just don't start. They'll have these ideas and they'll draw them on the board. I know me and you are both vision board people. Yeah. But it means nothing if without action, right? I mean, we could have the best playbook in the world, man. We could have Tom Brady come back and be our quarterback for the Dolphins, man. We have the best playbook ever. But if he doesn't throw the ball, we don't get off the 20-yard line. We're stuck. We're there forever.
Yep.
So, I mean, I just want to say I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you sharing everything with everybody that's going to listen. I also appreciate the mentorship that you provided me, the value that you got me. Everybody 10 years from now, when you see me in my millionaire real estate empire, is because of this man right here inspired me to get involved in the game. Encouraged me to stop talking about real estate and actually start. And, I'm happy to say that my journey is going pretty well. I know you're going to be joining me along the way, but it's all about starting, guys. So, Ryan, thank you so much again for everything you've done for me and everything that you've learned, taught me, and what I've been able to learn from you. And I definitely look forward to having you back on here again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I know that you're going to go places and do some great stuff. And I love the Be Better podcast, and just keep sharing the world, because there's the only thing that works. Be great.
That's right, brother.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.